to day 2 of Horrific 2026. We've just had a short film showcase, our first of the day, and now we are talking to some of our filmmakers for a little bit of a Q&A. Do me a favour, let's go down the line, make my life a hell of a lot easier. Tell us who you are and what part you played on the project that we showed.
Hello, my name is Jack Berry, and I was the director of Exit, which was the horror short that played about halfway through, about the woman who's sort of stuck in a dying dream. That's the best way to describe it.
Hello, my name's Forrest. I was the co-writer, cinematographer, the doll, and the sister, and the makeup on the doll's house.
I'm Mark Forrest. I'm writer-director of The Doll's House and editor. That's about it, really.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm the writer, director, producer and editor of Forget Me Not.
Hello, my name is Adrian Viviani and I directed and wrote The Night Watcher.
So, first things first, filmmaking's hard enough as it is getting it done, especially on an independent scale and whatnot, and here you are today seeing it up on the big screen. What was it like watching it up there today with an audience? And that's for everyone.
Terrifying.
I think it's definitely a dream come true. I mean, I'm a film university student, so seeing this up there is really, really special, and knowing that it's a family project as well makes it even better.
I agree.
I think sometimes rendering out, because I just kind of edit on like this very terrible laptop that's got like 6 gigabytes of RAM or something like that, and whenever a festival asks for a DCP, I kind of render it out and hope for the best. So that was the first time I've actually seen the DCP of it, and I feel like, yeah, it turned out pretty well, I think.
I'm not too sure on that one, by the way.
No, I think that the cinema and stuff did it justice, I think, yeah.
I was in the same boat, like my computer kept crashing every 10 minutes of editing of this, so it was a long process. So when the DCP request came, I was just like, oh god, here we go again. But I'm very glad it actually worked. So yeah, it was fantastic seeing this. The first time I've seen the film on the big screen, so yeah, it's a different experience. It's night and day from watching it on your small PC laptop. So yeah.
So where did the idea for each of your shorts come from? What was the original image, the original thought process, scene that you had in your head that made you want to make this show?
So Exit was made as part of the 666 challenge, which is ran by the Independent Horror Society. We kind of had absolutely no plan. We just sort of got given the brief on the Friday, hopped on a Zoom call. Kind of, the script kind of came out of just ideas of just things that we had, like what costumes we had access to, and what locations we had access to. A friend of mine was just like, well, I've got like a surgeon's outfit, like could we possibly have a doctor in it? And then she was also like, we've also got access to a coffin. And then we were like, well, what story can we kind of come up with these elements? So it was very kind of, just kind of throwing everything together and seeing what kind of narrative we could make out of that. But it was all just very like stream of consciousness. There was no real time to second guess. It was just sort of like, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so we made The Doll's House, and because I'm the father of 2 daughters, obviously I've got an attic full of dolls. So I decided to destroy some of those in making the film. I've also got blood from another film that I've made, and fingers. So it just basically thought, well, why not just pull all this together and rip off The Evil Dead 2, which is what we did.
I must say, you have one of my favourite quotes of the festival with "Damn those plastic fingers." I don't know why, but every time I hear it,
yeah, it's just one of those things that holds true. A doll can't really use an iPhone.
Yeah, so is it the question, where did the concept for the film come? Yeah, so it's the script kind of morphed over a couple of years, but the premise was always the same. always had a fascination with people with a dark past, especially kind of older people, kind of the old guy, next door. And Forget Me Not, it's kind of a cocktail of some of my interests. I'm interested in true crime, as many women seem to be. But I'm also interested in kind of cold cases being solved through familial DNA. And so it's a little bit influenced on the case of the Golden State Killer that was captured in 2018 with that. So I just wanted to kind of play with some of those themes, and Forget Me Not was really a bit of an experiment, really, so that I can hopefully expand on a few of those themes into something a bit longer.
I was going to say your short absolutely screams of like, I need more, like I need another episode, or I need a feature length. Is there a plan of like hopefully expanding into a series, or would it be a feature? Like, what would you prefer?
Yes, the idea was I wanted to expand it into a feature, because I realised with Forget Me Not, I've put a lot of different themes in there in such a short space of time, so I'd like to kind of develop a couple of those themes and really delve in a bit deeper and really kind of expand on them. So that was always the plan, really. But yeah, this is my first ever film, so it really was an experiment, and I've learnt a lot from it.
It looks pretty groovy for a first film, by the way. Like,
Thank you
unbelievable.
very much. Thank you. It's great to be invited here, so thank you very much.
So the original concept was actually a minute short I wrote back in 2020, and it's completely different. So the idea was I was writing with zero budget, zero resources in mind, and obviously with no budget and no resources, I kind of had the assumption, yeah, maybe not the best idea to have a monster or anything that you can actually see. So the original concept was somebody taking very vain selfies in the woods, for that Instagram viral nature, and you hear the aperture, the shutter click, the skeuomorphism click that you get with cameras. And when she looks at the gallery, something is taking pictures of her from different angles in the woods, and as she throws it away, you keep hearing the clicks, and the camera is getting closer and closer to the person's face, which is what I ended up using for the last shot of the film. But then my friend asked if I had any scripts, and I basically said, my friend's Jake Bentley, who runs the Freelancers, is a filmmaker, and I said, yeah, I've got a few that you could use. And he had a look at the minute short and he liked it, and I thought, well, I could probably expand upon this and just put it into a different setting. So it went from vanity and it changed into voyeurism and that power dynamic, and then how that gets reversed when the camera gets put on you, basically. So that's what this version of the story came from, specifically.
So with budget in mind, and this is for everyone, what would you say is the biggest creative risk that you had to take, maybe because of time, because you were part of a challenge, or budget restraints or whatnot, but actually it works out way better for you in the show?
I think for The Doll's House, there were a lot of parts of the story that we had to cut. There were some more complex bits with, sort of like body horror, and what we wanted to involve an air fryer at one point. But it ended up that I think that could have made the film a bit more clunky. And actually, the reason that we made The Doll's House was so then something would exist, and it just shows that filmmaking can be fun, and that it doesn't have to be this Oscar-winning, 3-hour-long film. It can just be something that you make with your family and you enjoy making it. So as long as we kept that central to our aims for the film, then I think we did quite well. And also wrangling the dog was quite difficult.
Yeah, because we have a dog and we had to keep the dog out of the way all the time.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that, because we didn't have a lot of time, I've previously shot on a Canon 600D, and that the setups that take quite a long time. Well, I've found that. So we decided to shoot on a phone, and just the speed of the setups and the fact that you can actually get a useful image which can be played on a cinema screen is quite surprising. So that's something I've learned.
I think a challenge sometimes can be with sort of limited runtime. So the maximum runtime asked could be was 6 minutes, and I think like what the story was kind of became quite ambitious, and it's also very it's like very sincere, and it's quite slow, and it's quite it kind of relies on, by the end, the audience being very like invested in the character, and I think it was just whether or not, I don't know, we kind of earned that from not like, because it goes a bit tearjerkery at the end, and it was just whether or not we'd earned that, or whether or not it was going to just come across as like cringe. But I don't know, I think I just was quite lucky working with Hannah, because I think that you, so Han, who was the main character, I think her presence on screen is just very like, I don't know, she's got something where you kind of want to root for her. She's just got this sort of vulnerability and this softness about her, and I think that, I don't know, maybe if we were working with somebody else, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't quite come across as well. But yeah, I think sometimes it might have been easier to go for, you know, one that just sort of ended with a jump scare, or one that ended with some sort of punchline. But I think we were a little bit worried about ending on a more sincere kind of note, whether or not that would work.
Yeah, what was the wording of the question?
The biggest creative risk through budget or through timing that you have to take, but it works out better for the film?
Well, I think just the very nature of not showing
Yeah.
what the thing is, it leaves it up to the imagination. And I know that can be a cop-out in a lot of situations, but with the budget, we literally had zero budget. We literally just asked everybody involved, if you've got a spare PC screen, bring it with you. We even forgot a keyboard because we were absolute numpties. I had to buy one off Facebook Marketplace, drive about 10 minutes down the road to purchase it, just for me to use it, because it wouldn't make sense otherwise. But I think with the budget restraints that we had, there would be nothing really that would do it justice, in the sense where obviously you can make creatures, you can create effects and create genuine scares with the looks with very limited budgets. However, with the nature of the actual theming, etc., your own imagination is probably going to do a better job than anything that I could have done, anything that any of the other people could have done with the capacity and resources that we had. So I think it ended up being a nice creative choice in the end, and then we just worked around certain other shots and things to make that work with, you know, the perspective of the creature being shown its effects rather than the actual entity itself, so to speak.
And for Forget Me Not?
Just trying to think how to answer the question, actually. So, like, in terms of creative risks, I mean, we shot in 4 days on a quite noisy location as well. So we were kind of restricted anyway, with our budgetary restrictions, but yeah, we had to kind of work around that. Is there any other aspects you wanted to ask?
No, just like creative risks that you took, or things that you thought you were never going to be able to get because of budget or time, but actually you did get it.
Yeah, but I have to say, I think we planned it really well. So we managed to get everything we needed done, and we didn't really need to cut corners. And that's through doing a lot of location. Location was the biggest expense for this 4-day shoot. But I think it was all down to the planning. So we didn't need to restrict ourselves too much. Yeah.
So before I go on to my last ones, do we have anybody in the audience that wants to throw any questions out there? Yep, go on in front here. Yeah. You could just throw your voice because Peter's being lazy.
My question is for Forget Me Not. Earlier on you said that if you were to revisit the project, or maybe you said if you were to make your next, I'm not sure which, you wanted to focus in maybe on just like 2 themes. What are those themes, and would you, what are those themes that you would revisit, or would you revisit them in another project perhaps?
In the longer script, I'd really like to focus a bit more on Rick's character, and also him being discovered through familial DNA. I like the idea of maybe just keeping it to two characters. So Rick, either a relative who feels that this relative's obviously has known Rick throughout his life, and then through the advent of familial DNA, it's discovered that he's actually the perpetrator of a very cold case from many, many years ago. And I like the idea of sometimes not knowing the people around you, even the people closest to you. And I think I'd just like to kind of focus on that. As I said, I think for this short film, I've put a number of different themes in, obviously podcaster, true crime, and maybe overcomplicated it a little bit too much. So I think if I'm going to take a theme for the main film, this is what it's going to be.
Anyone else? I can't see hands, so you will need to show.
I really enjoyed the question you asked earlier about the if you could make like one film from a famous horror franchise, and this is a general question for all of you, like what one would that be and why?
I always wanted to adapt Silent Hill 2 into a movie, but then they did that recently with Return to Silent Hill, and it was like, so that story's now been used, and it's got like 10% on Rotten Tomatoes or something, and it was a massive flop. So if I got the chance to do that again, I would, if they let me. We might take a bit some time to breathe on Silent Hill for a little bit. But
10% on Rotten Tomatoes, you could do it next week.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that would be great, because I take a lot of inspiration from the Silent Hill franchise. I like that sort of psychological horror storytelling and that kind of thing.
I think for me, when I first heard the question, my initial reaction was Cocaine Bear, just because I thought it was so fun. And it was just ridiculous, but it's the fun of filmmaking. But if I were to remake something, I'd like to go down the route of like the horror of female friendships, especially when you're a teenager. And I think Jennifer's Body does that really nicely. So I'd like to do something inspired by that, but yeah.
I think I'd probably go all the way back to the 1920s and try to remake something like Haldon is the Cat and the Canary, which is just a fantastic kind of like old dark house film. And I think that the world was ripe for an old dark house movie. So yeah, I've made that.
It's difficult because I would love to think I could remake one of my favourite films, which is a completely different genre actually, and it's called Midnight Cowboy. I don't know if anyone's ever watched it. Although maybe a bit arrogant to say I think I could do a good remake of that. But yeah, it would be Midnight Cowboy.
It's less of a film in question, like a specific film, but the whole Charlie Chaplin-esque silent film. I've already wrote part one of this script about someone who is in a silent movie with all of the tropes, but then slowly starts to realise he is in this world where nothing makes sense, so everybody else is in that silent film world, and he starts to gain this consciousness that he is in something that feels deeply wrong, and it's something where he is always the victim, and I think that sort of would work with the psychological horror, especially when you have someone as over the top but also sympathetic as like Charlie Chaplin's Tramp or Buster Keaton sort of thing, though. You love them, but they're also fools in their outright, and then when they start to, gain this sort of realisation that things are happening because they are a specific person, I think it would be nice to work with that.
So your films have been made, we've showed them up there today. If you could go back after the experience of making this show and tell yourself one thing before you start making this show, a little bit of advice, what would it be?
I think maybe I'd do less takes, because I think I've got a tendency to do 100 takes and then just use the first one. I think I could be a bit of a perfectionist. So I think I'd maybe value the actor's time a bit more.
I think for us, because it was so in the moment anyway, as with your film, we came from the 666 competition, so we had to do everything quite quickly. I think just staying centred on our aim is to make something exist, and if that brings a bit of laughter and a bit of horror to an audience, then we've done our job, and just staying centred on that part of it.
Well, I was sat in here today and there was laughter going on, so.
I think I just would tell myself not to use a lamp that's got like an oil burn on the top of it, where you use the oil to kind of like make a nice smell, because I managed to drop that and spill oil all over the floor. So I'd say don't use that.
Yeah, sorry.
I think for me, write a props list and have everything a little bit more organised, so at least I know who's bringing what and what I need to bring personally. I'm still not over that keyboard incident specifically.
I think for me, I was trying to do too much myself just to keep the budget down, which it did, but I think it nearly burnt me out, let's put it that way, because on the first day of filming I fell ill, and I think that was just from complete burnout. So I think I've learned a few lessons from that. And also just to say as well, get as much feedback on your script from as many people as possible. It's really invaluable to get different perspectives as well.
So I'm going to end on this one, and I think for the Doll's House film, I kind of might know what the answer to this is, but if your movie was the physical embodiment of a human being, what would its karaoke song be?
I mean, our doll does start saying "What was I made for" from Barbie, which is a brilliant part. But I think just something really camp. You know, like you're in a gay club and it's just going mad. Maybe a bit of Chapel Roan. I think our doll would really love that. You don't know who Chapel Roan is, do you?
Yeah, I'm going to avoid this question. I just listen to soundtracks, I don't listen to the song.
Hey, everyone else? I'll be wrong right now.
I'm sure I can think of an answer. I'll hold off.
Why does everybody take this question so seriously? Just throw a song out there.
I mean, personally, I don't know the names of many of the songs I listen to, so I would say maybe Night Vision or Television Rules the Nation by Daft Punk. I mean, Night Vision was actually the very first pseudonym for the script. I think it has the right melancholic sort of digital tone that matches it. Maybe not the, deep theming or horror aspect of it, but close enough.
I was hoping you wouldn't pass this to me. I've got no idea. I'm going to have to think about that.
I'll be in the bar
That's
later
a
on.
question. Yeah, give me a couple of hours.
Maybe Bye Bye Bye. But who's that by? NTIC?
Oh, the
NTIC.
yeah. Way further back, but yeah, that'll do. Right, guys, thank you so much for submitting your movies to us and letting us show them up on the big screen today. Thank you for being here most of all and letting everyone see your projects. Can we get a round of applause?